Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So it has been a little while since I shared a video on here, but that is actually one of my goals for the new year, to hopefully post at least one video a month, if not more, to YouTube and be able to share more video content with you guys. I had asked on my Instagram stories if I should share Avery's birth story in a blog post or a YouTube video, and it was pretty much split right down the middle, 50-50 of what I should do. So ultimately I had to make the decision anyways, even though I was hoping that you guys would be able to help me. So I do have a rough draft, sort of my notes and thoughts of what I was going to say for the video written out, so I will publish that to the blog for those of you who prefer to read versus listen. But I hope you enjoy video content. I know when I was pregnant, I was watching every birth story that I could get my hands on. So I spent a lot of time on YouTube watching. So my hope is that this story will help someone out there who maybe is pregnant right now and not sure what to expect when it comes to giving birth. Unfortunately, watching videos doesn't really help you know what to expect, but they're still fun to hear other people's experiences. And even now that my baby is here, I still enjoy, reading or listening to other birth stories to see what it was like for other women, because every birth story is different and special and amazing. So as you know, if you follow me over on Instagram, which you definitely should if you're not, I have a little girl, Avery, and she is actually 1 year old already. I cannot believe how quickly this past year has flown by, and it has flown. I have no idea how she's a year already, but don't worry, don't feel like I haven't, remembered what the birth story was, because I wrote it all down just in my personal journal shortly after she was born, and anyways, I clearly remember it all. It's something that once you experience it, you will never forget it. So I have been wanting to share the birth story with you guys. I never did get around to sharing it when she was, closer to the beginning of this past year, but I'm sharing it now and figured her 1 year birthday is the perfect opportunity to kind of reminisce on her coming into the world. The other great thing about a YouTube video is that this is such a story, such a personal thing that you go through. I think it's great to hear the person actually telling it versus reading it on a blog post. Although I write my blogs very similarly to the way that I talk, I think it's still really special to be able to share it with you verbally, and it just makes it that much more special for me and hopefully for you too. Alright, well, it's a bit of a long story, so I guess I will go ahead and just jump in. Avery was born on a Monday, but the story actually starts on the Saturday before, and I was feeling very pregnant, 35 weeks pregnant. I had ankles that were about as big as my thighs. They felt huge. I was really uncomfortable, and I was not sure how I was going to make it another 5 weeks. But I knew that I would probably go past my due date. My mom went well past her due date with me, and I just had kind of had that in my mind of how it was going to go. So I had saved a lot of the tasks, not a lot, but a couple tasks for the month of January, because I knew it's kind of after the holidays or in that post-holiday slump. I knew I'd be feeling uncomfortable, and I knew I'd just be waiting on my baby girl's arrival. So I had decided earlier on in my pregnancy, hey, let's save a few tasks, a few of those nesting items for after the holidays, just something to do, something to keep my mind off of just waiting. So that Saturday in mid-January, I was ready. I didn't have like a feeling or anything. I just decided, we're about a month out, we should probably go ahead and do those items that I had saved. So Brian and I spent all day Saturday getting stuff done. We were just in nesting mode. He put the car seat in the car. I did all of her laundry, hung everything up, made it so perfect. We put her bedding in her crib, just those final finishing touches. We went to Target and bought all of the postpartum essentials and hospital bag items. another thing I had watched a ton of videos on YouTube about, so I had a list going of everything that we were gonna need. So after a long day of nesting, I was exhausted by that night and I just was ready to go to bed. So we had everything for the hospital bag and I figured I'll just pack it tomorrow. It's fine. You know, I didn't even think that. Like, it was just like, okay, it's nighttime, I'm tired, we're gonna go to bed. Whatever. Didn't totally finish the list, but it wasn't a big deal. I just knew I'd have time to do it another day. So we went to bed, and it was about 11 o'clock when we went to bed. And for me, when I was pregnant, the second my head hit the pillow, that was it. I was gone. I would wake up the next day and be like, what year is it? It was like the craziest thing. I definitely had time in my pregnancy where I struggled with like pregnancy insomnia, but by the end, no. I was just like out, and who knew what time was passing, years were passing me by. So that night when I woke up an hour later at midnight, I had no idea what time it was. I looked at the clock and I was almost in disbelief that it had only been an hour because it felt like I had been out for days. So after kind of coming to, I realized that I was laying on a wet spot in the bed. And so I woke Brian up in panic and I was like, I think my water broke, or I'm wet. I think actually what I said, I woke him up and I was just like, get a towel. Like, I just was like freaking out. Like, we need to, you know, clean this up. So he gets up. I went ahead and called my parents and I called the doctor. I don't remember who I called first, but I think I called my parents first. And they were like, call the doctor. So called the doctor and she said that we, you know, would need to go into the hospital. They would have to confirm that it wasn't my water that had broken, and if my water had in fact broken, that we would be having a baby. And I remember the only thing I asked her was, is the baby gonna be okay? Like, as if she knew. I mean, how does she know if the baby's gonna be okay? But she was very calm and she was like, the baby's gonna be fine, you know, just get yourself together and come to the hospital. So looking back, knowing everything I know now, which hindsight of course is 2020, I wouldn't have gone to the hospital in such a rush as we did. I wasn't having any contractions. You know, my water had broken, but there was really no other sign of labor beginning. So I just think we were in shock. I was 35 weeks pregnant, first time mom. My water broke. I was expecting to go to like 42 weeks. And, you know, that's what we did. In the moment, you do what you gotta do. And so we ran around the house like chickens with our head cut off, packing that dang hospital bag. So it's like 1 a.m. and we finally are ready to head to the hospital. But we were very thankful that we had done all those preparations that day. It was almost as if I knew, but I didn't know that I knew, but obviously something in me knew that that was the day we needed to get the car seat installed and kind of just start getting things ready for baby. So thank God for that. So fast forward, we're at the hospital, we do the whole triage thing. They confirmed, yeah, my water had broken, which I definitely knew. We got up to a labor and delivery room, and by that time it was already 6 a.m. So like I said, there turned out to be no real rush to get to the hospital, but that's what we did what we had to do. So when you get up to the room, they check you to see how far you've progressed, and I was at 1 centimeter and 50% effaced. So if you know anything about pregnancy or having babies, that is literally nothing. There's women who are like 3 centimeters and 100% effaced, walking around, you know, pregnant. So that was pretty disheartening to hear, and we knew that we had a long way to go before we were going to have this baby. We immediately started talking about Pitocin, which is something that will help your body to go into labor faster and progress to where you need to be, which is 10 centimeters and 100% effaced. At some point during my pregnancy, I had decided that I wanted to try and do a natural birth. So we found out about the Bradley method, and Brian and I went to the classes for that, and we really enjoyed the process and learning all about it and just everything you need to know about going through birth without pain medication, which I felt confident that I would be able to do. So when they started talking about Pitocin so early on, I was like, whoa, hold on, we're not going to do that. The other thing is about having your water break. They want you to have the baby within 24 hours of your water breaking, and that is because once the water is out, the amniotic fluid is gone, the baby's more prone to being susceptible to infections and all that. But you have that 24 hours. They had me on fluids, they had me on antibiotics, so I knew that everything was going to be okay. We didn't need to start Pitocin just yet. So we worked with my doctor and the nurses, and we were able to give us some time to see if I could progress naturally. So we did what you always see them doing, walking the halls in the hospital, round and round. I didn't realize that once you were admitted to the hospital, you cannot leave your floor. So our walking path was pretty limited. I don't even know how many laps we did around that place. While I was hooked up to an IV and a monitor, they had the fetal monitor, they had this like alarm to make sure you didn't leave. It's like you're strapped into all kinds of stuff. So we're walking around and around. They let me know I needed to come back, stop walking. They needed to check me, see how things were going. Unfortunately, had not progressed really at all, even after hours of walking. So at that point, they had conversations with my doctor and with me and decided to do a cervix softener instead of the Pitocin, because I still was fighting the Pitocin, because I knew that if I was going to have to get Pitocin, I was going to have to get an epidural, because Pitocin brings on really strong and really fast contractions, and it doesn't allow your body to go through the natural progression of the contractions getting worse and worse, where you can kind of build up to that strength. It's just like, bam, you're having your full-blown labor. So I knew that was kind of the end of the line for me and having a natural unmedicated childbirth if I was going to have to do Pitocin. They gave me the cervix softener, and if you've had that and you know it's not fun getting that put in, especially when you're only 1 centimeter dilated. So they did that. And hours went by, we did more walking. The contractions definitely got started, and they were definitely fast and hard, and it was extremely painful. We had used all the tricks in our book, standing, sitting, laying down, getting in the shower, just everything possible to try and get through the contractions. After another few hours, it was time to check me again, and I was really excited to find out that I had made it to 5 centimeters. So that was awesome. I was so thankful that all that pain I was going through wasn't for nothing, and my body was finally getting a move on. So since I had progressed, they decided to give me a few more hours to, continue, see if it was going to progress anymore. Hours went by, a lot more contractions, a lot more pain, and they checked me again. No, nothing, no change. At that time, it was 22 hours or so since my water had broken. The doctor was on the phone with the nurses, and the nurses were talking with me, and everyone was trying to honor my wishes, which I really appreciated, even though I know my doctor just wanted to start the Pitocin from the first second and just get the baby out ASAP, which I understand from her perspective, but I also had my own plans. And at that point, 22 hours in, there's nothing else that we could do other than get the Pitocin. So obviously we could have continued to fight it, but at the same time, I have a doctor for a reason, and that's because I trust her, and I trusted what she was saying, which was that the baby needed to get out right in and around that 24-hour mark. So we made the decision to kind of move from let's have this natural unmedicated childbirth to let's just not have a C-section, because I knew they were going to get the baby out sooner rather than later, and if my body wasn't going to progress, then the only other way to get the baby out is through a C-section, which I definitely did not want. One of the biggest reasons that I didn't want to have an epidural was because I was/am terrified of epidurals. They're literally putting a needle into your spine, which anyone I think would be afraid of. I don't know. I just wasn't here for it, so I was ready to do whatever I had to do to not experience that. Unfortunately, it came down to that, so had to get it done. Was not a pleasurable experience, but I survived, thank God. And once that got in, and it took a couple, well, I'm not exactly sure how long it took. I think it was at least an hour until it was fully working on both sides of my body. There was a while there where it was only working on half my body, which meant I was still feeling contractions in the other half of my body, which is almost worse than just feeling the full contraction. And I was really upset because I'm like, well, if I had to go through getting this epidural, I want it to work. I mean, I don't want to feel anything if I'm either all or nothing. I either don't want an epidural, or if I have an epidural, I don't want to feel a thing. So luckily they were able to have me reposition my body a few times to get the medicine to work equally on both sides, which it eventually did. And I was able to take a nap, which was the most amazing thing. So if you remember to the beginning of the story, we only slept 1 hour on Saturday night before waking up with my water breaking. So by this point, we had been up for almost 48 hours without sleeping other than that 1 hour. So for me to be able to have a nap before I had to push was so awesome and made it all worth it having to get the epidural. So when I woke up from my nap, the nurse checked me again, and she was super shocked that I was at 10 centimeters and she could feel the baby's head, and she's like, it's time. So we didn't really know, what to expect with the Pitocin, and just at how shocked the nurse was, we were equally as shocked that it had worked so quickly. So they called my doctor, which, sorry, it was 2 a.m. I'm sure she really appreciated that wake-up call. So as soon as they called the doctor and said that it was time to start pushing, the whole room completely changed. We had been there for over a day at that point, and we had, just been really us and the nurses. We kept it dark in the room because I was just going through the contractions, trying to get through them. And as soon as it was time to push, it's like the lights came on, all these people came in. Because I was at 35 weeks, actually at that point it had just ticked over into me being 36 weeks because it was officially Monday morning. They had a neonatal team in the room on standby to check Avery when she came out, just to make sure she was all good and didn't have any problems. So as soon as all that started happening, it was just kind of crazy and a little bit scary to just see all these people coming in and like preparing the room and preparing me and getting everything ready. So I was lucky that once the doctor got there, I only pushed for about 30 minutes, which maybe sounds like a lot to some and maybe it's really short for others. Some people push for hours. I was pretty happy with 30 minutes. Avery came out in one final push, and they laid her on my chest, and that was my baby girl. It's just such a surreal thing. I mean, until you go through it, you can't describe it. The feeling that you have meeting your baby for the first time. It's just surreal. It's the weirdest thing and the most amazing thing all wrapped into one. So after a few minutes of getting to snuggle her and see her and everything, the neonatal team took her and just checked her out and everything, and we were so blessed that she was completely fine. They were able to give her back to us minutes later, and it was just as if, she was completely healthy, full-term baby. So that is definitely a miracle and something to this day that we're still so grateful for and so thankful for. And honestly just amazed that she was totally fine. And And that is really it. That is the story of how Avery came into the world and the craziest days of my life, the most life-changing days of my life. And a lot of people say the day their child's born is the best day of their life, but I say that every day since that day has been the best day of my life, and I am so just thankful for my sweet little angel. Something that we still aren't sure of is why my water broke so early. My doctor doesn't know. She said that it can just happen sometimes. There were no signs of, why that happened, or there were no signs ahead of time that would have led us to believe that that was going to happen. You might be thinking, oh, your due date was off, but my due date was definitely not off. I'll give it maybe a week of wiggle room, but we were actively trying to get pregnant, so I was tracking my cycles to the T. I knew exactly what my body was doing and exactly when I got pregnant, so the due date was definitely not a month off. And with how tiny she was, she definitely wasn't a full-term baby. So I don't know, it's a mystery, and it's just one of those things that we'll never know the reason for. But at the time when she was first born, I did go through a lot of emotions, as all postpartum women do, but kind of had to almost mourn the loss of those 4 additional weeks that in my mind I thought I had to prepare for having my child. But we, had her come kind of quickly and unexpectedly, and now looking back, I'm so grateful that we did. I would never trade those 4 extra weeks that we had with her for the world, and hey, those were 4 weeks that I didn't have to be getting larger and more uncomfortable by the day for. So everything happens for a reason, and it all worked out absolutely perfectly, so very happy with the way that everything turned out. Like I said at the beginning of this video, I really hope that you enjoyed hearing this birth story, and if you are expecting your little one right now watching this, then I am sending you all the prayers and good vibes for a smooth delivery, and I hope that it helps you in some way to have heard my story, and I wish you the best. So the other thing that I am going to put on my blog is kind of my lessons learned, or my biggest takeaways from pregnancy and going through giving birth, and I hope you guys will check that out. I'll leave the link below in the description bar, and make sure you subscribe to my channel, because like I said, my goal for 2019 is to put out more YouTube content, so I am very excited to come up with that, and I will talk to you guys soon.